Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the GFT and Launch the Bank in 12 Months event. Thank you for taking the time to come. We really appreciate you making the time to come and hear about our story. My name is Jo Down. I'm a delivery director in the retail banking practice, and I'm the host for your event.
So my name's Carlton. I run the UK business in GFT. So welcome to our little office in the City of London. For those of you who don't know GFT, and quite a few people don't, we are a platform engineering and digital transformation consultancy, pretty dominant in financial services. We do a little bit of work in manufacturing and in retail, but we're mostly in the financial services sector across retail, asset management, capital markets. Been around for quite a while, 12,000 people globally across 20 countries. And I had the pleasure on this particular program of being the day that we talked about the idea of working with SaltBank, or what was called Idea Bank at the time, which you'll hear more about, and Engine by Starling. And I was there when we went live. So although I'm here because I run the UK business, this one's quite close to me because I was in the thick of it with everybody. We have the team here. So there's the next chart. If you can just go on to the next chart, please. So I'll just point out that the team here, I'll leave it up for a while. They were all on the project and they're all here. Okay, so we've got a mixture of people from GFT, and also you've got people from Engine by Starling, and Robert, who I'll introduce in a minute, from SaltBank. So please do grab them. You know, this isn't the sort of, marketing presentation about what we did. The folk who did this are in the room. Okay, so I'd really encourage you. Maybe we can leave this chart up afterwards. I think, building a bank in 12 months is a very sort of bold statement. And, at one level these days, things can be done. But if you put it in the context of the amount of money and time that has been spent ineffectively in replatforming or platforming and launching businesses, it's something that we're all very collectively very proud of. The other thing is, it's building a bank that actually onboarded customers, and what type of bank was built in terms of being very agile. So I just maybe have those two things in your mind. We'll take you through how we did it, and we want this to be very, very open and interactive. The fact that we've got quite a lot of people who are really involved in the project, we really want to open up for Q&A. But first, I thought I'd get Sam and Robert to join me. So, Sam, why don't you introduce yourself? And Robert, why don't you introduce yourself? And then maybe I will sort of position a couple of questions. Sam, over to you.
Hi, good evening. Lovely to meet you all, those I haven't met before. I'm Sam Everington. I'm the chief executive of Engine now, but I've been with Starling Bank since it was a tiny startup. I joined a 20-person business where Anne still sat on reception, kind of pre-banking license. So I'm a software engineer by background. This is not my natural territory on stage with a microphone. But I originally ran the teams building the mobile apps and the APIs for Starling, and then was responsible for product and design and all kinds of operational areas of the business over the long and exciting journey that's been. And a couple of years ago, when we got to the point of separating Starling, the UK bank, from the technology entity now known as Engine, I stepped across to run that for the group. So this is a really exciting and personal journey for me, because I was there at the moment when Starling launched back in 2017. It was actually me who clicked the button to publish it to the App Store, which was a really anticlimactic moment. The whole, all 50 people that the bank employed or something were around my desk at that point with the big publish to App Store button. And then we just went through pages of legal questions and additional terms and all kinds of other joyful things that Apple had stuck behind a button that looked like it would do what we thought it would do. But we got there eventually, launched that bank, and obviously a very interesting journey from there onwards. And so to get the chance to do that again, to do that at such a different pace, if I think of what we launched with and the time it took to mature that into what it is now versus the time we spent under a year from the first line of code being written to launching with Salt, it's a really personal privilege and journey to have been a part of it, and really, really excited to see it grow. We were all watching the customer numbers hour by hour in those early stages, and it's great to be here today to talk about it.
Hi, thank you very much for letting me be here, and thank you very much for putting that on the on the slide and actually live in the store. You reminded me of actually our present days. We just hit click every day. We are the tiny startup looking towards big giants, aspiring to be a big giant. And with just launched the bank, we had immense success. I will share about it more, so I will want to get into too much details now. But so many things ahead of us and such an exciting time.
And one thing I'd say is, this was not a project; it was launching a business. And GFT, we had the privilege to be in the integration work on this program and some of the work working with Robert and his team to build the app, etc. Obviously, Engine is the key part of the solution, and then obviously Robert is building an entire team. So you've got the business, you've got the solution provider, you've got the integrator here, and all our people. But one thing we were reflecting on, this wasn't a project. Everybody felt they were launching a business, and it had its moments of challenge, I'm sure, and we'll probably talk about those. But one thing to really take away is everybody felt part of a very, very clear business objective, and I don't think we'd have got anything done. Maybe before we go into the detail, maybe we can just go a little bit back to comment. If I go to you, Robert, first, how did it all start? I know you're going to talk a little bit about where you are now, but maybe we're good to talk about the beginning of this from a business perspective.
Yeah, so basically, first thing to say is that we're from Romania. In Romania, there's a definite market leader, which is a bank called Banca Transilvania. Market leader meaning 25% of market share in terms of anything, assets, liability. Yeah, definite market leader. It grew from a regional bank, hence Transylvania, to a national bank. It grew first organically and then unorganically. And it is now, if you look at the customer base of Banca Transilvania, a radiography of the entire market. When you see the radiography of the entire market, then you see everything, right? You see rich people, poor people, educated people, less educated people. You see everyone. And then what Banca Transilvania recognized and acknowledged is that the digital savvy people, the digital native people, were missing from its customer base. Because of this background, right? It rose from regional to national. Because of this massive scale that it has, it cannot compete with the likes of ING or the likes of Revolut. And then what they decided is that instead of trying to revolutionize a massive mountain, they put next to them a speedboat, and they acknowledge the fact that it needs to be fast. It needs to be... they invested money, but it's not billions, right? It's not hundreds of millions. And it's an investment where you can see very fast if you just burn money or you're building a business case. And this is a very specific thing for us, right? We really are building a business. We're not tech. We're not fintech trying to raise funding, and for that we're just growing users. We're really building a bank with a business case because our shareholder is a bank that wants returns.
And maybe Sam, could you comment on, I guess, how the journey with Salt, because you were launching in the market at the time with a complete new offering, and customer number one is always going to be the most interesting, right? Okay, maybe you can comment on the early part.
Yeah, I think at that stage, even it was, is there going to be a customer for this? We had this idea with Engine. Starling runs entirely on its own technology. For those that for those that haven't heard the kind of Engine story before, so everything from onboarding to the core ledgers, the payment and card processing, the transaction monitoring, the tools used to investigate those, to complaints and chat and call handling is all on this richly integrated platform that we developed to run Starling and build the business we wanted there. Very, very cost effective from a commercial point of view, and you can see that in the economics of the bank today, and being one of the first digital banks in the world to hit profitability, but still sitting at the top of the customer satisfaction tables as well. So delighting customers, that was the sole purpose of building what was. That leads to a bit of a fintech tour that goes on. We've had banks arriving for a number of years now, trying to figure out how Starling made digital banking profitable. And some of those ended in, can we work together? Can we co-invest? And so Engine almost comes out of that as much as anything else. How do you take this business internationally? Building a big international banking brand has been tried for decades. ING, HSBC, countless others have been into lots of markets, withdrawn from them. It is difficult and it is very capital intensive. And we spent 5 years building a brand to the point of scale and trust in Britain. And so actually, if we want to have the most impact we can, transform banking for as many customers as we can, let's take the thing that's unique, the technology we built for it, and the experience we've gained operating a properly digitally native, proper digital first bank, and partner with organizations that have got the license, the experience, the trust, the local market knowledge, the things that are hard to start from. That's a big part of Salt's proposition. It's got all the pace and agility and innovation of a digital bank. It's absolutely there, but in the background there's the stability of Bank of Transylvania there too, and that's really important if you want to become someone's primary deposit institution, and that's ultimately how you make money as a bank. So my life before Starling, which is probably relevant to this, was replacing core systems in banks and auto manufacturers. I started as a mainframe engineer back in the day, and so, but you always arrive as a consultancy, understanding what the business does, its processes, and then you're kind of digitalizing, adapting, changing the system to fit the business. You end up on these branches and forks and custom systems that are expensive to maintain, hard to upgrade. They become legacy quite quickly. And so my one condition to Anne in agreeing to try the business now known as Engine was that we wouldn't customize. It's like everyone needs to be able to benefit from all the new things that are being built all of the time to get to market quickly. The question is, would anyone buy core banking software that way? Which was an interesting one to answer until we met Gabby, the chief executive of what's now known as Salt Bank. And it was, I'd left, we had sort of a whole day with Gabby and the team grilling us on every possible question they could think of. It was quite fascinating. But I left the room that day and was like, I feel like I've just been interviewed by Anne and Steve, who was the Starling CTO at that point. It's like they really understand the business. They know what they want to do. They know the right questions to ask. I think they can do this. And so I now know with hindsight, Gabby left the room that day as well, thinking this is the way we're going to go. She had inherited a different plan, and that was the kind of genesis of this partnership. They're our first client. We needed this to work. We really want every client that works on Engine to succeed, but none more so than the first. And it was a really fascinating meeting of minds, I think, to get going.
Okay, so we've got 5 or 6 questions to quiz you on. You have had some prep time, but I'm sure you'll think of other things as we go along. So, Paul, firstly, what aspect of Engine and your approach do you think enabled the rapid timeline, and what key factors contributed to that success?
I think the key thing is that Engine is born out of a bank, a running bank in the UK. So you don't get this bag of disparate components that you then have to bolt together to form a bank. It's there, it works. Almost on day one, you have a working bank. It's not necessarily the bank you want, but it is a bank. And so you can then spend your program time effectively doing that iterative work to say, what are the things that we need to do to build on that really good platform to then take it from this fairly vanilla, albeit, very modern banking experience, and then take... So yeah, it's then about taking that and then building all of the stuff that makes Salt Bank Salt, right? So it's, building all of the kind of unique integrations that the Romanian market needs, doing things like exotic things that we never heard of, like garnishments and...
You have to tell us what that is, Robert.
I can certainly tell you if you've got a spare 8 months.
Things like the integrations with Salt's existing general ledger, payment rails, and then there's the key differentiator is things like the mobile app, right? Building that, working with GFT as they were kind of, building that mobile app and integrating with us. So, but I think the point is that that's very much an iterative process. It's not, you don't spend 6 months gluing things together and then you can start thinking about what sort of bank you want.
And Richard, talking about the risks that were involved, what did you see as the most significant risk to delivering on time, and how did you manage it?
So the obvious one in terms of significant risk is this is a first of firsts. It was the first client of Engine by Starling. It was the first integration partner of Engine by Starling, and it was the first of a new region outside of the UK for the platform for Engine by Starling. So that's the obvious risk. Accompanied with that were the really tight timeframes that we had to deliver on. So when we were first introduced, I remember sitting in the boardroom and the ask was, we need to build a bank and launch a bank in 6 months. And I remember my eyes popping out of my head thinking, how can we possibly do that? We then realized that actually what we needed to launch in 6 months was a working bank that was good enough to send to the Romanian digital regulators to seek the approvals required in order to continue to build the bank and actually ultimately launch to the public timeframe that we had. There were a couple of other things that were risks and challenges along the way. As I say, there was a very tight time frame to actually launch and deliver the bank in 12 months, not least that by the public launch date, there was also the European elections coming up, which meant that the bank wouldn't actually be able to get any exposure in the local and international media because it would all be taken up by political slots and political adverts. So we were really focused on making sure that we actually hit the deadline because we couldn't afford in any way to be late on that. So those were like the key risks. It was the sheer scale of what had to be delivered and the short time in which it had to be done, and so many unknowns. And the bank had a very clear vision about what they wanted to be. And when we looked through the functional list, I remember we had numerous conversations where we iterated over what was the MVP scope and prioritizing what needed to be in the bank. And when you think of an MVP, you normally think, what is the minimum viable we can get away with? But the MVP for this project had to be an equal or a better than a Revolut who had 8 years to build their platform. Otherwise, they would launch to the market and not have a Y move. So it had to have all of the feature richness of Revolut and more. And I think we achieved that, Robert.
And I think I'll just come in on that. The point that I was making about an iterative development as well makes those conversations about scope easier because, you are going to be launching at a point in time that you've almost sort of decided in advance. And so your conversations become less about will we be ready in time and more about how much of the value proposition will be ready on this date. And you can then prioritize and work out, but you're never in a position where you think, crikey, we're not going to be ready on that date.
And it sounds like efficiency of requirements, management of scope were absolutely key. But when you're looking at the platform, Paul, how do you balance the need for speed against being able to configure and get the maximum out of the platform? How did you make sure that the bank's needs were met?
I don't know where they met, Robert. I think they were. I think it's about keeping that dialogue open. So there was continual conversations going on between myself and Richard and Robert and Gabby, and there are always things coming out where you find things are more complicated than you thought, or rarely easier than you thought. So there's always things about what can we do to make things easier and things like that. But I think one of the really nice things was whenever any of these things cropped up, whenever we hit a roadblock or a stumbling block, we were always confident that we could go to the exec team at Salt, lay out the options to them very clearly and say, look, this is the issue. Here are our options. What should we do? And they would, go away, have a conversation, but come back very quickly and say, right, this is what we're going to do. And so we could then pivot to the new reality and carry on doing that. And that, there was no, we need to go away and think about this for a month. We didn't have a month to think about these things. So that was really key.
And Richard, it sounds like, moving at a fast pace, multiple teams and stakeholders. What practices were the most effective to keep everyone on the same track, targeting the same milestones and keeping that pace?
Yeah, so there were a lot of moving parts in the project. So we used Jira as our tool, obviously, for the engineering effort, and that tracked all of the different intersects against the various different programs of work that were running. The interesting thing was we realized very early on that this was not something you could do remotely. It's not something you could do in isolation. And we had to rapidly pivot and embrace more of a co-location model so that we were actually able to talk together with people and capture each other at very short notice. So not having to rely on aligning diaries to make sure people were available. If something was important, you could just walk across the room and bring it to their attention. And I think that was key. And doing that, we actually, we came together a lot closer. The other thing was we had strong governance across the program to make sure that everyone was absolutely aligned with what had been agreed and when it was going to be delivered. And we had daily syncs between ourselves and Engine to make sure that we were working together cohesively, because effectively our engineers had to be in lockstep with their engineers so that we were some of the time, if you think about it, the platform was proven within Starling Bank. It was in its infancy in terms of a market offering. So therefore, we were working very closely to make sure the engineers inside Engine knew our expectation, and the engineers inside Engine set our expectation. So the two engineering teams had to come together to work very closely.
Yeah, I mean, I think we often had this cycle of defining what we were going to build for a given feature, and then we would define the interface, and then we would do the implementation. But while those three things were happening, we were then starting the same process for the next feature. So it was a real, laying the train track as you're going along it.
Yeah, exactly.
So that everyone needed to be ready, because the only way we were going to do it in 12 months was to have everyone, 100% utilized 100% of the time.
Yeah, we also, so we followed an agile delivery approach, and that allowed us to be able to rapidly pivot in terms of the sequence in terms of what we were delivering in order to meet any challenges in what was quite a complex ecosystem of vendors and partners. There were lots of planning sessions and replanning sessions and moving the parts of the jigsaw puzzle around so that we could actually maximize the velocity at which we were moving. I think working together as a single cohesive unit. So very early on, we had the conversation that we're one team. It didn't matter whether you were in Salt, GFT or Engine, we were one team, and we were all in it as one team together.
It sounds like it was a very exciting program to be on, and very fast paced. What practice would you say was the most powerful thing that helped you maintain that team and maintain that that sort of fast pace for what is a considerable amount of time? You're not talking a few weeks, you're talking months. I suppose that's a question for Richard first.
So I think it was coming together frequently, and actually, as Paul said, it was the openness of the executive and the senior leadership within Salt Bank, where there wasn't a fear factor if something wasn't necessarily going according to plan. It was more like an open door policy. Come in, tell us, and we will work this out together. And that's exactly what happened. And there was no one who shied away from raising an issue or encountering any problem. And there were numerous times when, I would knock on either Robert's door or Gabby's door and just say, we have to have a conversation about this. And it was never met with anger or hostility or annoyance. It was just met with, okay, how can we tackle this? How do we come to a solution? And, working it through together. And it worked very effectively because there was that openness and honesty and acceptance.
Is that something you recognise Paul would?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, I'd add a couple of things as well to that, to those words. Trust and respect as well.
Yep.
I think there was a recognition that we were all working to deliver this goal. We recognised that everyone knew what they were talking about. There was no second guessing, and there's that trust and respect that you can disagree without any hostility. So, myself and Richard many times, either in an office or sometimes in a bar, would have in-depth conversations about how something was going to work. And, we will often start out in fairly opposing positions, but then, you work your way towards a consensus. And then we're able to then present that to SALT.
And so one final question to you, and then we'll open the floor for any Q&As about the journey and the pace of progress. There's one piece of advice you could give others attempting a similar project. What would that be, Paul?
I think I would say that if you go into it thinking that you can come up with a plan that is perfect and nothing will go wrong, and you will deliver on time and everything will be amazing, then you're being very naive. But if you get the right people, and you get the right people with the right attitude, and you align them with that goal, then you will be able to smash through any roadblocks that come your way. Working as one team, as we've said, that gives you that tools and that attitude to kind of deliver for your client. And
Richard, your words of advice?
So I can't give one piece of advice, but if I have a few, but I'll keep them brief. There's basically 4. So when attempting a program like this, then having strong governance in place is absolutely key. But strong governance isn't a governance that says no. It's a governance that says yes, or yes, if this. So, coming up with what would you need to do in order for that to receive governance, but never a no. Because if you have that type of governance, then people try and work around governance rather than working with it. And that then causes problems. And so having strong governance in place is key. Also, having a clear vision as to what you want the business to be. And I think Gabby and Robert most definitely had that clear vision. It was easy with that clear vision for everybody, regardless of which organization they were in, to buy into that vision and have those common shared goals. And that created a very strong culture and bond across the entire program. The other one is, I think it's important and key to have an engineering first approach for the project, because that continues to keep everyone focused and know how you're progressing against plan, and seeing things shape. It really brings in all of those who aren't necessarily in the engineering function, but the business can see results and they see progress, and that progress inspires them to want to do more. And the last thing is, I think Paul just touched on it. You are in a relationship. Expect to fall out. Make a pledge to each other that you will set aside dedicated time to have those arguments, discussions, but that you will reach compromise and come away with it, and have set aside dedicated time to do that, so that you're doing it away from the project and the program, so that nothing spills out into the program, and that you're keeping the program running at pace.
That's how the English part.
Yes, and actually, we created such a tight bond and close-knit team that one night Paul and I were actually married. But that's a conversation for over.
That sounds like another story. Thank you so much.
I have a story.
I realize I haven't introduced myself. I'm Robert. I'm the Deputy CEO in Salt Bank. I'm responsible of the business part in Salt. This covers everything around product development, marketing, and customer care.
Bine ați venit la lansarea oficială a primei bănci 100% digitale, 100% românească, făcută aici Uitați-vă la noi, o să se întâmple lucruri faine și o să vă placă, vă promit.
Short movie about the launch event that we've had when we really launched the bank. You know, when you're swimming, you sometimes need to take a breath. This was a breathing moment for us. Yeah. It was the 30,000th lap out of the 3 million. But we took a good breath. We had some fun. I am here to tell you about how do we as a customer think we did it. But in order to, before I tell you that, I want to answer to the real question, which is what was in our mind when we chose a sloth to represent us. You know, sloth is really the slowest animal on the earth, the slowest mammal, right, on the earth. So to put this to represent the newest neobank, digital only, cloud native, microservices, all of the most innovative, right? It is a bit counterintuitive. And I can tell you that I think choosing the sloth versus a squirrel and another animal, which I cannot remember the name, but it is cute. I think that decision was harder than choosing Engine and GFT. And can you imagine, you know, banking executives, not with a tie, I never wore one, but banking executive in the sixth floor of the glass building, you know, it cannot be a sloth. It's the stupidest animal in the world. But no, it cannot be a squirrel. So I want to tell you about how, in the end, we decided. Romanian is not lacking digital banking value proposition. Revolut is there, ING is there. They are already having the digital and actually BCR of Erste Bank is present in Romania, and Erste and ING are listed under the digital leaders cluster with Finalta. So digital banking in Romania is not foreign to Romanians. So when we wanted to launch the bank, we knew that we have a great product. But in order to put it into the market, we wanted to have something that stands out and it's likable. And when we had this vision, we knew that there was a recipe. We didn't. Our agency had told us the recipe. And the recipe is this. You take an animal, not a dog, not a cat, right? Something that is a bit uncommon. You make it do something spectacular and counterintuitive to its nature. And then while he does that, you put a great a song. Can you guess the song of this? It's Jump Around from House of Pain. Salt means leap forward in Romanian. So jump around, it's exactly what this guy is doing. I will now link this explanation to what I'm going to share. So we've had this vision, and then we started to execute it. Choosing the slot took us 3 weeks. Then we filmed the spot. It took 2 days. But this is CGI. So basically, during the 2 days, you are filming roads, you are filming, trees and landscape, infrastructure, right? What happens behind the main action. And then 3 months after we filmed, we worked on the personalization of what happened, yeah, giving personality to the slot, making it this cute. It was a process starting from an NDT. It was outrageously ugly when it started. I didn't show it to Gabi because I wouldn't have been here. I supported the slot. But then this is exactly what we did with Salt, right? We had a good vision. We applied a good recipe because we know banking, right? We did the infrastructure. The decision was 2 weeks at the magnitude of this, right? Then we did the infrastructure, we did the design of the architecture, and then we implemented and we gave personality to the bank. And I think this will tell about the way that we did it, right? I'm getting into more details. So basically, this is how Salt was born. I was telling you about Banca Transilvania and their ambition to step into a more digital native value proposition, right? And we decided to start a digital-only bank. Banca Transilvania has the largest footprint of branches, the largest ATM in the network. They didn't need to claim the physical banking value proposition, right? It was cloud native, and we needed to have a solid business case. I would tell you about the results that we're aiming for in a couple of slides. And then with this, we started to work at the positioning in the market, and basically what we're trying to be is a best of both worlds, right? We're having on one side the fintechs, which are friendly, they are human, they are super agile, they are super oriented to user experience. And then we have the traditional banks, which are banks, which are regulated, which already have the trust of the customers, but they are slow. So then we wanted to be the boss of this, the boss of both. What we launched is actually, we say it's an MVP, but in reality, everything was there. Instant payment, all the connection to Alias Pay, Apple Pay, Google Pay, everything was there. All the cards that all the feature related to cards, everything transactional was there. Spaces as a saving feature, deposits, everything was there. And it was there in a way that it stood out from the in the market from value proposition to user experience. Everything was outstanding in terms of the product that we put in place. It was not at par with Revolut. They have some years ahead of us, but we are not at all ashamed with what we launched. And it was immensely well received. The launch and the product actually became viral. I won't share about the way that we launched now, but it was really a viral thing in the market. Great sympathy, great energy. We stood out. It was great. So how? Basically, the recipe is formed of 4 components. One of them is missing from these slides. Engine brought in an excellent product. You cannot imagine having out of the box, basically, all the core banking, all the product definition, all the operations, and all customer care. Everything is there. It's working. We didn't spend any time, any energy to define how to instruct a payment. It worked. It was there. We connected to the payment gateway, but it was not our job to define the core banking definitions. And actually, I think this is smarter, right? Because we can focus for us, we can focus in the experience layer, how to stand out in the market, but we don't care about how the credit notes work inside the ledgers. And it was also visible that it was built by bankers. So efficiency was there. It is easy to use. You cannot imagine, right? I'm coming from a bank which is, I have worked with ING previously. It is one of their prides that they are efficient. They think they are. Now I can see, right? You are working with one system, one interface, and everything is there. You have secondary authorization, rights management, everything is there. It was incredible for us to receive the product. But then JFT came into the place, and then it's not only that they have tech capabilities. We have worked with JFT about risk management. We have worked with JFT about UX. We have worked with JFT about so many complementary things outside of the tech core value proposition, and they have helped and brought insights into the project, right? With a business mindset. They knew of the business. We didn't need to teach them that, okay, in credit, in the risk component, you need to be able with, we need to be careful with AML, right? They knew that we need to be careful with that. And then, honestly, in terms of capacity, they delivered. What we needed to do in this structure is that we needed to stay true to the vision. We knew what we wanted. We knew how we wanted to be put in the play in the market, and then of course we needed to compromise at some points. We didn't compromise on the DNA of the bank, but some things were left after MVP, after go live. We didn't compromise on the date because then elections came, but we did manage to take quick decisions. And also, indeed, it was super focused. And I was telling you about the fourth ingredient, and this is something that you cannot put really in words, but the best explanation is this symbol. We weren't married, but it was more than a partnership. This is how I feel it. This is how we all felt it, right? In the rear side mirrors. And of course, there were tougher times. But when you do look in the rear side mirror, we launched the bank in 12 months. And, I remember 2 a.m. working sessions in our offices with Paul there about an integration where Engine didn't even have anything to do, right? You were there just to support. Every 15 minutes, Paul was giving an idea, something sometimes relevant, sometimes not, but but it was not it was nothing to do with Engine, right? But he was there. He could have left the office at 6 o'clock with nothing to, nothing to complain about. But he stayed until later than 2 a.m. Same with JFT, right? When we called Carton and we told him, look, elections are coming, we cannot delay. We delivered. And if it was weekends, if it was overnight, it is whatever, it happened. And this commitment, this sense of partnership, and this this trust. I think trust is a very good characteristic of this partnership. This is very hard to find, and I'm super grateful for Engine and JFT to have brought this into the project. Where we are now.
I love this chart.
I was not there when this was made, but I understand. McCarton, maybe you share more later, that their bets have been placed
On a beer mat.
on a beer mat. And you can see there are multiple people here placing bets on how many customers we will have. Interestingly, the most pessimist and the most optimist are neighbors. This is from Sam Everington. This is from Paul Williams.
Oh, and these are thousands of customers, quite a lot.
300,000. Yeah.
Versus our customers after 30 days.
Yeah. We did this in 10 days, 70,000 customers. In less than 10 days. In 10 days, we did 100. And we are now very close to 300. We are 200, almost 90. Yeah, in 2-3 weeks, we will also have 300,000 users. It's impressive. Yeah, with 300,000 users, we are now in top 10 banks in Romania in terms of number of users. It's good. But I told you we want to build a business. And with this concept, what we are actually aiming for is 1 million customers in 3 years. And we need to break even in in 3 years, 2026. Opa? So basically, this is just the start. We've launched we can tick just the success of the launch. We are now building a business. We are now building new features and new products into the bank. We are working now with Engine and JFT to launch lending. We are now working for freelancers, and investments is the next value proposition that will come very soon. Basically in 18 months, right? And then we'll have both assets and liabilities inside the bank. That's good. So before we go, I was telling you that the sloth was an MVP and it was outrageously ugly. You're laughing. I will show you. So I will try to show you also in the ad that the progression of the sloth from something outrageously ugly to something that stands out and confirms that we're on the right track to get to the vision that we're having.
Thank you so much, Robert. What a fantastic presentation and amazing story. And you tell it with such excitement. It's amazing.